Hello and welcome everyone to Talk to Stu with me, Stu Magoo, and I'm joined in the moderating chat by the Duke of Nuke. And so he is there to pick out your questions and make sure I don't miss them. He's also there to make sure you behave yourselves as well. So let's always, as always, keep it civil and fresh. Also, if you can hear me and the microphone's good, let me know. If there's any difficulties or anyone's got any issues with sound, pop that into the chat at the moment. Because, yeah, I won't know because I haven't got headphones on. It all seemed fine earlier. So, hello to everyone and thank you for joining. First of all, most importantly, happy birthday, Sarah. Sarah, I not no idea what age you are, but whatever it is, I'm sure it's probably around 21. And remember, you're always young as the man you feel. So, hope everyone is having a pleasant evening, particularly now that certainly here in Worcestershire the weather seems to have improved and it's quite nice and sunny, pleasantly warm. I'm just wearing a t-shirt and I'm not in a huge amount of pain. So, right, lots of questions this evening. What I've been doing in the past is starting with a bit of a news update. But some people have asked me some questions offline, I suppose, on my videos that I thought I would go through to start with, and they're sort of quite sort of immediate issues that are happening at the moment because obviously the government has announced a whole raft of changes and things in the recent month or so, and of course they decided to do that while I was actually on holiday, so I wasn't able to respond as quickly as I would have liked to those sort of things. But anyway, we will try and go through all of these things now. So the first thing is the administrative earnings threshold. This is a bit of a concern for a lot of people, and I did have a question from a subscriber and supporter, so don't forget, if you're not already subscribed, you probably are if you're watching this, but if you're not, then do subscribe. So the administrative earnings threshold for people on universal credit has been increased from 15 to 18 hours earnings per week, set at the national living wage for individual claimants, and the monthly figure equivalent is 29 hours a week at the national living wage for couples. Okay, so what does that actually mean? Well, originally, when Universal Credit was had the administrative earnings threshold set up, it was 9 hours. Then it was increased to 12, where it sat for quite a long time, and then it was increased last year, I think, or maybe the year before, to 15, and now it's up to 18. The difficulty with the administrative earnings threshold is it's basically saying that you should be, at this point in your universal credit claim, earning this amount of money in work. It assumes that you are earning that money even if you're not, and so it only pays your universal credit, whatever it is, over that amount. So just to explain that a bit more clearly, so if, for example, the administrative earnings works out at £300 a week, and your universal credit is £400 sorry, not a week, a month, £300 a month, and your universal credit award is £400 a month, then they're only going to give you £100 a month. Okay, so you're only getting the difference. You're assumed that you're working that many hours, even if you're not. A very similar thing applies under self-employment as well. And for some people under self-employment, that might apply pretty much straight away from when they're self-employed, but for others, they may have a 12-month period where that isn't applied. So it sort of depends. Now, obviously, this is going to affect around about 180,000 households across the UK, and it is going to cause more financial hardship for people because that amount has increased. So if you imagine an increase of 3 hours a week at the national living wage, that's around about 45, just between 40 and 50 pounds a week difference to what people are normally receiving. So a lot of people may see quite a bump in what they're receiving from Universal Credit. Now, a little bit like the increase, the what do they call it, the inflationary increase that was applied in April, most people won't see this appearing in their award calculations until during the month of May, which is this month. So bearing in mind that inflationary increase, it is very much a case of they give it with one hand, they take it away with the other. And so it is what it is. So that's that one. Now, the other thing that came up, and this isn't benefits related, was around lasting power of attorney. So what I've been doing lately is putting out a series of videos that might be beneficial to some, probably not all, but talking about things like later life planning or planning for a funeral or problems with housing, things like that. So do check those videos out if you've not seen them and you think they might be useful to you. Those videos are on my channel, so just dig into the channel. You might find other things that are there. But one of the questions that was asked, which I thought was quite an important one, is can somebody apply for a lasting power of attorney without your knowledge or even fraudulently? Well, of course, somebody could attempt to do that. There's many different ways that people could apply for lasting power of attorney and do that in a fraudulent way. However, lasting power of attorney needs your consent for it to be set up in the first place. The Office of the Public Guardian who do that would write to you to inform you that that had been set up as well. And if you became aware of it and you thought that that was done incorrectly, you could contact the Office of the Public Guardian directly, and they would, assuming that you signed a couple of forms and declarations and whatnot, they would then stop that lasting power of attorney from existing. They would remove it altogether. So the person who'd set it up wouldn't be able to use it. Of course, if somebody had set one up and then was using it fraudulently, that would also be a crime and something that you could also report to the police. So there we go. Right, I've seen that there's some questions coming in already and things are moving on. Okay, Becky's just got back. Well, we're all set up without you, so you're okay.
Yes, sorry, hello everyone, goodbye. I'll move, I'll go away.
No, you're welcome.
No,
But
okay. Say hi to everyone from me.
Okay, will do. Thank you, love. See you in a bit.
Bye.
Okay, bye. So, yes, that was a nice little hello from Becky. Yes, she was quite busy, only just got back from work and things this evening. But, yes, she is here in spirit, and it's quite nice, actually. She got some nice perfume on, so that's filled the room. Anyway, let's get to your questions. So, first of all, Isabel Knight asked, "Hi, Stuart, I'm really concerned about the now proposed move to migrate everyone to Universal Credit who is on ESA and housing in the severe disabled group sooner than the original dates of 2028 to 2029. Well, that is a concern, yes. There's no real answer to this. At some point, everybody is going to have to migrate onto Universal Credit. Whatever happens, even if another government comes in, if we get a Labour government come in, that will probably still continue to happen. What happens after that point is anyone's guess, really, at this moment. The Labour Party under Keir Starmer have given no indication that they intend to significantly change the way the benefit system works. unlike the Corbyn administration, which was very clear that it was going to pretty much scrap everything and put in something that is not a human rights abuse. So yeah, they probably going to continue with that, and part of the need for moving people quicker is just really so that they can then move on to this next phase of things that they have been announcing recently, which is causing quite a lot of concern for people. What I would say with all of this is it's not actually happening right now. It will be happening for the migration. That will be happening a little bit more quickly. But the proposed green paper that's been put out, that is just a consultation at this stage. Martin Lewis also said a similar thing earlier in the week to people: don't get in a panic, it may not come to pass. What's interesting about this is this has been pulled together by a number of think tanks based in London, and it's something that I, for one, have known that the Conservative Party have wanted to do for a very long time, which is adopt a voucher system similar to that in the US. In the Green Paper, they talk about a few other things, and I've done a long video on this, so I'm not going to go into it too much. They talk about a few other methods that they might engage in, but a big part of that is making sure that everybody has moved over onto universal credit by the point of doing that. The good thing about that, if there is a good thing about it, is that if you are to move onto universal credit from employment support allowance and you are in the severely disabled category and you receive those extra payments, you will get the transitional protection with that. And there was a recent change in the law, which some people in here, John Hughes, John Huggs, knows all about, which means now that that amount is properly protected with the severe disability premium. So even though under universal credit it doesn't have a severe disability premium, it will have that protection. So you will, for the time being at least, be receiving a similar amount of money on that after you've transitioned over. However, if there is any changes to your status within it or your circumstances, such as having a work capability assessment again, then it may be that you lose that entitlement to that. So it is a concern, but at the same time there is a little bit more, only a little bit more protection. The rollout of starting to get people to increase the frequency of people that are moving over is to start in July of this year. But in real terms, there are still a lot of problems with the DWP in terms of employment and so on. So that may start a bit more rapidly or seem to, but then probably it's going to slow down again because they just won't have the capacity. More than likely, although they've had a big employment drive in the last 6 months, within 2 years, those people who they've taken on will be on their way to somewhere else. So don't panic too much that that's going to happen to you or immediately. It still may be some time yet before that starts to filter through. John Witt is asking, Stu, if I paid you, would you help me fill out my PIP renewal application? Unfortunately, I'm not doing any casework at the moment, John. I would love to be able to help everybody and do the casework for all of them, but unfortunately there just aren't enough hours in the day, because as you can appreciate, doing this channel, I have a lot of requests for that kind of support. However, if you have a question about your case or something where it's a bit more complex, then I can give you some advice and things on that, but it will be quite small. But if I feel that you need some one-to-one support with things, then I would try and signpost you to the correct service. However, in the description for this video and in the description of a lot of my videos is a link to the Turn to Us advice finder, which should be able to show you if there is anybody in your local area that can support you with those things. It's also worth contacting any local organisations that provide support, usually for a specific disability. It may well be that there are people like me around, and they may even be in the chat tonight, who are able to do that kind of work with you. So, apologies. As I say, I would love to help everyone, but there just aren't enough hours in the day. There is another lady on YouTube called Charlie Anderson, who you may have come across. She's worth looking at. I think she does some PIP applications as well, but I suspect by now she's starting to have capacity problems. So I would imagine she's got a waiting list by now, because she's got quite a lot of viewers. But her videos are very good to help you fill in the form as well. So, Batula Khan. So someone only gets ESA, they're included in the move earlier too, right? Yeah, quite possibly they are. John Hughes, hello. Stu, firstly, thank you for your help last few months, no problem. I've sent the letter in my journal on March 18th and 2 times since. If it was you, how long would you give it until you escalate it? I would say about 3 weeks. For that, I would be escalating it now, John. Definitely. Hi, Silver Moon. I'm very well, thank you, at the moment. I'm doing okay. Bit up and down, but I did have a little holiday, which was very nice. So thank you. Yes. Pat Phil Thomas. How long does it take for a decision on pension credit? Well, pension credit decisions are usually made quite quickly. It depends on how it's done, whether it's done over the phone or if you've done the paper form. If you've done the paper form, which tends to be unusual, then that can take a little bit longer. But you're looking at least a month and around about 3 months, all told. Also, once you have that decision on pension credit, you will need to also look at things like housing benefit and council tax support. They are down as a passportable benefit. So the entitlement to pension credit should give you automatic entitlement to housing benefit and council tax support, but it doesn't work out that easily always, as the pension credit department do not necessarily send it through to your local authorities' revenues and benefits department. They can be quite slow, so you may want to contact them separately. Once you do get the award letter, if you fill in a housing benefit council tax support application form, make sure to include a copy of your award letter. That will help. And again, seek out support local to you for further information on that one. If it's around pension credit, you may even be able to access support from an Age UK local to you. No problem, John. Brian, are single claimants who receive old-style ESA being migrated to UC much sooner? Yes, I believe they will be. Yes, I think we've covered that one already. Hopefully you caught that one, Brian. Edward Brown says he can help some subscribers with some issues as well. Edward Brown's a good guy to know. He has a Facebook group which can also be useful for hints and tips there. You might be able to get in touch with him that way as well. So Edward, if you could maybe pop some information about that in there, just the name of the group. I don't think you can poke. I don't think you can poke anyone, but I don't think you can put links in the chat, unfortunately. But if you just put the name of the group in there, then people hopefully will be able to track you down that way. So let's have a look at the queue. Where are we? Ooh, Cheer Bear. Okay, so this looks like a complex one. Let me just have a sip on my coffee. My father has had to stop working due to his health. He's in his 60s. His doctor told him to apply for PIP because he was definitely entitled, which he did. Doctors don't know whether people are definitely entitled. He has been very worried, understandably, about this, as my mother is disabled and he is her carer. He had a telephone interview and received a letter saying he was given 0 points and not eligible. I'm very worried about my dad's mental health. Do you have any advice about redressing this? Yes. Appeal that very quickly. Don't hang about. Put in for mandatory reconsideration first of all. That would be the thing. His doctors probably told him to apply for PIP because the doctor felt he might be entitled. Being entitled to this benefit is about you demonstrating how your disability affects you to such an extent that you have a significant impact from the health condition that you have on your daily living activities. So I didn't word that very well. If he has filled out a form with a lot of detail, going into a lot of detail as to how his health condition is affecting things like eating and drinking, preparing food, moving around, planning, following the route of a journey, reading, communication generally, all those sections. If he's put in a lot of information there and then been given 0 points, then you should definitely go for a mandatory reconsideration. The absolute most important thing is to try and get professional support from somebody, maybe at the CAB, somewhere like that, to see if there's anything that can be sort of done to do that, but at least put in for that mandatory reconsideration. Now, I have done a couple of videos on this. There are other people available on YouTube as well who are doing videos on doing mandatory reconsideration and appeals and the best way to approach that. So do have a look at those. And again, there are people in the chat who may have also gone through that process and can explain in a bit more detail what it is that you need to do. But the more detailed you are in doing that mandatory reconsideration, the more success you're likely to have. If that doesn't work, then you have to go through to appeal. I will say this, and this is important for your dad to know, is the majority of people who apply for PIP are turned down straight away. It doesn't matter if they could have no arms, no legs, no head, and they will still get turned down because that's what they do. It's got nothing to do with whether or not a person is eligible most of the time. And indeed, between 65 and 75% of appeals are successful. And I personally maintain the ones that aren't successful is either because of a random technicality that wasn't seen or because that person didn't have support with putting together the appeal. Very few people take it to appeal unless they are absolutely genuine in what they're doing. So what I would say is just keep fighting it and do not be put off. I would also query if he is caring for your mother, is she receiving a disability benefit? Is there universal credit in place for the both of them, or possibly pension credit depending on where they are in their 60s? And all of those things. So it might be worth getting a full benefit check for both of them. Okay, so hopefully that's helpful, Cheer Bear. And again, use the link in the description of this because it has hopefully got the link to the Turn to Us advice finder, which may be helpful. Stuart Smith. Been awarded limited capability for work-related activity in February. First payment was last month, and I was told by caseworker that I'm entitled to it being backdated. But we're now in May, and no backdated pay yet. The backdating only goes to when the work capability assessment was done. It won't go any further back than that, and we've been seeing quite a lot that people are not getting their backdated payments sent through to them. This is quite commonly coming up in the last 6 to 12 months. So it is something that I would suggest that you should challenge as soon as possible, and maybe again try and seek advice and support with how the best way to challenge that is. Don't just rely on local support. Also have a look at websites like Disability Rights UK and the Child Poverty Action Group, because they have a lot of information about this sort of thing as to how you might approach it. Same thing to John Huggs on that one. It's a very similar thing. He's also looking for backdated pay. Generally speaking, when that request is sent through using the Universal Credit online app, they tend to ignore that, and the same with the phone calls. And unfortunately, that is pretty much the only way you're given of contacting them. So looking for a more robust way of approaching that is probably necessary. So where are we at? S Planet. I have a complex case, but the live chat doesn't allow me to type everything. If you've got complex cases, they probably best not for this kind of chat anyway. If you scroll up to the very top of the chat, you'll see my email address up there, stu.magoo.info@gmail.com. You can send me a question that way, and again, will respond to it eventually. Might not be straight away. Allow at least 48 hours, if not a week or more, for me to come back to you. I do try and field a lot of these kind of questions, and I have other work that I'm doing as well. So, but I'll try and answer those things if they're in more detail. But please do not share identifying information in the chat, or medical information that's, not about you, or, things like that, or too much detail anyway. This is a kind of quick and dirty chat. Don't take that the wrong way. So, Sylvestment PMs. How long does a PIP review normally take, please, Stu? I answer this question probably every time we do one of these, and I'm always happy to answer it. They're taking about 18 months at the minute, because they just don't have the staff to put it through. And I think that's one of the reasons behind trying to push forward quickly with this green paper to review how PIP is done, because they created a beast that they can't actually tame with these PIP reviews, because obviously population increases, more people apply for personal independence payment. COVID caused a lot of health problems as well. Underinvesting in the NHS leads to health problems. Not having really very good employment leads to health problems, obviously. So more people are applying for PIP, and then more people are needing reviews at the same time. And each year there's more and more reviews, which is one of the reasons why they've started doing 5 and 10-year awards. Not that that means a great deal if they change the system completely. But part of the idea behind that is to actually slow down the number of reviews that are coming through, because they just can't process them in time, and they haven't got the staff to do it, quite frankly. So it's taking about 18 months. What you should remember is that you continue to get paid at the rate that you're currently on, and if you if they then decide that you're not eligible for some reason, when it comes to the end of that, you don't have to pay that money back, which is good to know. However, that's not so good if you have had quite a major change in circumstances, and you do need to go on to the higher rate of mobility or higher rate of care, and you've got to wait 18 months for that to happen. So, good and bad with everything. Jan Wilson, oh, thank you. My health is quite good at the moment. What I must get in the habit of doing is taking off these little health update things where I post a little short, because I think they come up and people think I'm poorly at a time when I'm not. It was last month or whatever. Though I am always poorly, it's the level of poorliness that we're talking about. But thank you, Jan, and blessings to you as well. Mo Bark, I love that name, brilliant. I've got severe mental health issues and I'm now on employment and support allowance. How is going to work when I move to universal credit benefit? Well, that will come down to the transitional thing, and so you will be contacted. I have done a video on this, so please do have a look at my FAQs videos. I think it's my first or second FAQ video, which is about the ESA to universal credit transition. So do go and have a look at that video. That will answer things in more detail, but that covers everything from the process and also the transitional protection. Karen Campbell, I'm due PIP reassessment in 2025, but they usually send the form out quite well before that. I'm in Scotland and we're supposed to be transferred to ADP by 2025. Will DWP still send reassessment form? They shouldn't do. You should be getting the assessment form from the ADP system now. So that should come through. But there are similar problems in Scotland. I think people were expecting that ADP was going to be quite different to PIP, and when it's come out, it's pretty much exactly the same with just a different name. Whether it's any less stressful for people remains to be seen. It doesn't seem that it is a much different system at the moment from the information that I've got. I hope to be corrected on that, but we'll see. But yeah, you should get that sent through to you from them rather than the DWP. I forget the actual name of the organisation, so apologies there. Come to Bed Eyes has said, I'm on ESA and PIP. Do I have to contact DWP to change to universal credit, or will they contact me? So sorry if this has been asked before. Not quite. Sort of, but not exactly. I'll rewatch this live as I missed the first 20 minutes. Don't worry, absolutely fine. They will contact you. There's no need for you to do anything. But when they do contact you, you must get on it within 4 weeks. Within 4 weeks. Within 4 weeks from the date that's on the letter. You may get it a week or two after, due to post or whatever reason they come up with. But do act on it very quickly. Don't hang about, because it will... it may affect your benefit if you don't make that move straight away. So, the shed occupant. Have I got all benefits I can claim? Oh, sorry, going back to Come to Bed Eyes. Do, again, also have a look at that FAQs video on ESA to universal credit migration that's on my channel. That will be helpful. The shed occupant. Have I got all benefits I can claim? Now got cancer diagnosis on top, and as of yet I don't have basic funeral fund, unattended, and I'm like, what to do? Saving as much as I can, but well, yeah, that's a good question. Not one that I can answer, unfortunately, but again, in my description on this video, there is a link to the Turn to Us benefits checker, so have a look at that one. If it comes to funeral, that is something that your family may or may not be able to claim after the fact. I have done a video on planning for end-of-life care, which includes funerals and things, so have a look at that. Also, talk to Age UK. They've got quite a lot of information on that subject, and if you're not able to talk to them, go on their website, or maybe you prefer to go on their website, because they've got a lot of really detailed fact sheets that cover all this sort of stuff. So go and have a look at that. They're really useful. Sam Benson, hello. Will people that are on universal credit with limited capability for work-related activity and PIP standard mobility still go into the future UC health element? Yes, they will. There are some people say, oh, well, I've heard it's only new claimants that will have this happen to them. And I've heard this and I've heard that. That will be how it starts, that it's with new claimants, but a lot of people are going to, everybody is going to at some point have to deal with this change to how the work capability assessment is administered, which is very poorly thought out, and they don't even know how they're going to do it at the moment, or they certainly haven't released any information about how they're going to actually do it. But the idea is that PIP will be the thing that decides whether or not you're fit enough to work, which doesn't make any sense to anyone, because PIP isn't a fitness to work test. It's a how much does your disability affect you on a daily basis test, because many people work and claim PIP. So but yes, that is the idea, which is why I think they, again, another one of the reasons why they're sort of coming out with this green paper thing at the moment. A personal feeling of mine is that with the Conservative Party, they announce something that sounds absolutely dreadful, and then they do something that doesn't sound quite as dreadful, so that you're not quite so upset about the thing that's less dreadful than the first thing that they announced. They tend to do that a bit with things. That's my personal point of view. You may have a different point of view, but basically all of these changes will eventually come to affect everybody if they are implemented in the way that they're supposed to be, because they're always trying to get equanimity across everybody. And the more complex things are, the more costly it is, and the more difficult it is to administer, because then they're in and out of court all the time as well, because they keep making mistakes and so on and so forth. So yes, everybody will have to go on to universal credit at some point, and that may be increasing. Welsh Wend. That was to Independent Puppy. Welshwind. Hi Stu, will contributory ESA be moving over as quick too? Thank you, you're a good soul, thank you. Not entirely sure about that one. My understanding is that it will be moving in, that it's on both types of ESA. Contributory type of ESA is slightly different anyway, because it is based on your contributions, so it's called New Style ESA, even though it's not really. So it sort of sits separately outside of those things at the moment, but I think my understanding is that they're going to build that contributory assessment element into universal credit. That's why it's called universal credit, that they want to get everything under that one banner, whether it works or not. So eventually that will happen, but contributory ESA is a time-limited thing that you're on anyway, because it's based on your contributions, and at a certain point that comes to an end. And then you have to move on to universal credit anyway, so to a certain extent, it's not something that they have to worry about too much, because there will be natural migration when everybody's contributory element comes to an end. Karen Campbell, I read yesterday that they're going to trial new PIP ideas over several areas over England and Wales in October. Surely this can't be true. It is true. The things that they are trialling, as far as I'm aware, I would like to see the article that you're referencing, Karen. I did see this question pop up on the channel earlier today, or yesterday, I think, that you posted it, so thank you for that. But the trials that are down to start this year is using PIP as a way of determining a person's eligibility for this new system, where they've taken away the work capability assessment. So that's the trials for that are starting this year for certain. Whether there's any trials earmarked to happen that's relating to the current green paper that's going through, I don't know, but it may be a part of that consultation that they are trialling things like vouchers or something like that to see if it works. But my understanding is it's primarily around the work capability assessment being removed, so that they always do this, they start with trial things before they fully roll out across the country. Debbie Todd, I'm not computer savvy and get full everything. I'm just wondering what happens when regarding transferring over to UC. Well, this is one of the big problems with universal credit, is it is pretty much all online. So if you have a smartphone, you'll be expected to use your smartphone primarily. It's assumed that everyone has a smartphone these days, and of course they don't. And even if they do, they don't necessarily know how to use it. That said, in local areas, your job coach or work coach, whatever they're calling themselves this week, will identify with you if you are having difficulty with those things, and they will help you to find IT courses that will help you to learn how to manage it. But one of the most common areas where people get sanctioned on universal credit is when they don't agree to a claimant commitment that's been posted, or they haven't done something that's been posted on their to-do list in their universal credit account, because they're just not in the habit of looking at that every couple of days or whatever, which you need to do. And maybe they haven't got their email account linked to their phone, so they don't see the notification that comes through to say you need to log in and see that on your universal credit account. So it can be quite difficult, but generally speaking, most local authorities and job centres in certain areas will be able to link you in with IT training courses that specifically target universal credit and how to manage your account. Just a quick time chat. So, 58. I'm due to receive my state pension in December 2024. Will I still get PIP in retirement? Yes, you will. However, past that point, you will not be able to make any or increase the amount that you get paid on the mobility component. Okay, so if you're on the lower rate of mobility at the moment, or have no mobility component at the moment, past that point you won't be able to get that increased or upgraded. To do that for some reason that no one ever really understands why, but once you pass pension age, the entitlement to the mobility component disappears. It was always the way under disability living allowance, which is why they created attendance allowance. If you look at attendance allowance and disability living allowance, they're pretty much exactly the same, apart from they don't have the mobility component in attendance allowance. So yeah, there we go. Autistic Autumn. I have a work capability assessment soon. I'm already in the support group. I've had long COVID, but I don't have any evidence. What should I do? That's a good question. So first of all, I would be requesting a printout from your GP of everything up until from when you were diagnosed as having long COVID, assuming that you were, or when you thought you started developing long COVID. Get a printout of anything, all your doctor's appointments. Also asked to see any letters. This is generally known as a subject access request or a data protection request. Most GP surgeries will be quite used to getting these. Don't speak to your GP about it. You don't need to make an appointment with them. Just speak to the receptionist. Quite often they have a form that you need to fill in, which you sign to say that you want access to your data, and that will cover a lot of things in there. You may well have found out that you've been diagnosed with things you didn't even know you had been, as I did when I did this. I found out things. I was like, oh, I've got bone spurs on my ankles. That's why they're so painful. Thanks for telling me. Things like that. So yeah, it's certainly worth doing that. That's the first step. Also looking at evidence for those kind of things. I'm going to need to have a bit of a cough, so just bear with me. Ah, that was fun. Hopefully you didn't all hear that. Might have got it a bit in the background from the other mic. Anyway, so yeah, start with that. That'd be a good way to get some evidence. Descend into the absurd. Well, you're in the right place. Hi, Stu. I'm currently under review for PIP, and I'm expecting to be having my ESA reviewed soon. I claim for mental health problems, and I'm very frightened about the proposed changes. What do I need to know and do? Well, first of all, try not to be too frightened because, as I say, they haven't come into effect yet. Hasn't even got to white paper status. It's just a green paper at the moment. Yes, it does give a good indication that this is the way that they want to go in the future. But just because things are changing doesn't necessarily mean it is going to be changing for the worst. I mean, obviously, yes, it's the Conservatives in charge and New Labour possibly taking over, so it's not going to be brilliant, whatever it is, but don't be too frightened at the moment. We're looking at, somebody asked me on the thing, how long is this going to take if they bring this in? It's going to be a minimum of 5 years before this thing comes through. So the green paper's got to go through Parliament as a white paper. Then it's got to go through the Lords, then bounce back to Parliament, then the Lords again, then assent. Maybe it gets royal assent and goes through a bit quicker, but you're looking at about at least 2 years for that. Then they've got to get the actual, actual stuff out there into it actually happening through the DWP, do the trial runs, all that sort of stuff. So you're looking at quite a few years before it's even implemented anyway. So really do not panic for the moment. Okay. There's nothing really that you need to do at the moment either. Just kind of don't think about the future. Just think about the here and now and how you're managing day to day and all of those things. Try not to panic too much about it. Look after your mental health. Do good things for you. That is the most important thing. We just don't know what's going to happen at this stage. Does attendance allowance, from Jane Stoodley, this one. Does attendance allowance have a review date or is it awarded for life? It depends. Generally speaking, it's awarded for life. From retirement age up to about the age of 75, they're a little bit more fussy about how they award it. A lot of people will get it awarded for 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, something like that, if they've got a health condition that they think may get better. And certainly that's likely to be the case if they've got a health condition that could improve and they're applying within the age of 66 to 75. Once you start to get around the age of 80, then pretty much all of the health problems that a person has at the age of 80 tend to be pretty common across people of that age for a start, and they also tend not to go away. So usually at that point it tends to be just awarded ad infinitum sort of thing. In fact, attendance allowance is the least claimed for of all the benefits, I think, but I'm sure Edward Brown will correct me or someone else if they know more details on that, but I think attendance allowance has one of the lowest uptakes, if not the lowest, and most people that should claim it don't, usually out of pride or out of lack of knowledge around it. A gentleman or lady who is asking the next question has their name written in, I'm guessing possibly Urdu or Punjabi or possibly Arabic, and I don't know how to read that, unfortunately, so my sincere apologies there. Hello, sir. What about the vouchers that the Prime Minister said about? As I referenced earlier, we just don't know as to when this is going to come in. They're obviously serious about that in some respects, the Conservatives, but we don't know if it's really going to come in. Is PIP coming to an end? Again, we don't know. We don't know. Do watch my last news update video on that. It's proposed that they would bring it to an end and replace it with alternatives that they think or they say will work better, which we feel won't, and will actually take away people's independence rather than give it to them. But it's hard to know at this stage whether it will come to pass or not. However, it is a consultation process, so do get involved. You can engage with the consultation, tell them what you think, send in the information, fill in the online form, send off a letter. Also look out for, there's a lot of petitions about it doing the rounds at the moment. There's one on Organise. The Scope are also running a petition. Just find a petition and sign it. Just try and do that. And if you feel like getting active, see if there's any groups that you can get active with. Look at Disability Rights UK, Child Poverty Action Group, things like that. Carrier bag. I've just been awarded PIP full mobility till April 2027. Can I appeal the living allowance, and only if I appeal will my payments stop? Yes, appeal that, definitely. If they didn't award it correctly, your payment shouldn't stop while the appeal process is going on. But definitely do that. Start with a mandatory reconsideration, then go to appeal if necessary. Secret squirrel. What about people living in Scotland who don't get reassessed if they're on full? Is anything changing for them at all? As far as I'm aware, limited capability for work-related activity and universal credit is working the same in Scotland as it is everywhere else, but I'm not entirely sure, so don't quote me on that. Zoe Summers, what does using PIP to determine work capability actually mean? No one knows. I'm on highest PIP. Can they still force me to work despite my pain and mobility levels? To be honest, if you're on highest PIP, then you're probably the least likely to be forced into doing that. But honestly, they really haven't given any proper indication of how they're going to use that as an assessment. It is one of the most ill thought out things that they've ever done. Or come out with. It's actually less well thought out than the nonsense green paper that's just come out. It's weird. There must be a reason behind it, but I'm not sure what it is. It's certainly not for saving money or helping people. Can I ask how often the work capability assessments are, please? It's different for everybody. Chair Bear, it's different for everybody. They should give you an indication of how long it's awarded for. It's also based on capacity that they have in the area to do them and how long they're able to. Sorry, I'm starting to get tired. I'm going blah, 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 blah. So yeah, we don't really know. Well, I don't really know, but generally speaking, it could be. For some people, they might decide to review them once a year. Work capability assessment reviews happen a lot more frequently for people who are in the limited capability for work group, whereas if you're in the limited capability for work related activity group, also known as the support group, then they tend to be much longer before they review it. But it depends. What it depends on varies. If someone is looking after more than one person with learning disabilities and able to look after themselves to any degree, how do they get on? That's a good question. I think I'd need a bit more detail than that from you, Blue Angel, as to exactly what you mean by how do they get on. I don't mean that in a rude way. I just want to know what you mean. Mark, hi Stu, I'm on PIP and Universal Credit. I received my first payment of the new PIP upgrade. I'm just wondering, are the DW picking out anybody to stop the payment? I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. Maybe I'm getting tired. Received my first payment of the new PIP upgrade. So I've just seen a thing, Secret Squirrel, coming back to me. I'll check on that. I don't know for definite, like I say, but I will check on that Secret Squirrel. Yeah, Mark, I'm a bit muddled as to what you mean there. I'm going to move on. If you want to provide any more clarity, that's fine. I'll try and answer it. Hooked on Classics, Stu. I want to get back to work. Good. And I've enrolled at my local college for 1 day per week. Great. Would this impact my ESA? It shouldn't. I think you're allowed about 7 hours. Ed, are you around? Pension credit as one of the lowest uptakes. Thank you, Ed. Edward, sorry. Yes, it does have one of the lowest uptakes. I'm sure attendance, generally anything for older people, they have quite a low uptake, as I recall, from my Age UK days, but it changes all the time. But Edward, do you know? ESA, you're allowed to do, I think there's about 6 or 7 hours volunteering under ESA without it impacting, and it also depends in which group you're in. But yeah, 1 day a week, it would depend on how many hours you're there for and what you're doing. But generally, the government want to get you back into work. So have a chat with them. They'll probably accommodate to a certain extent. If there is going to be an impact on your ESA, it's going to be minor. And again, it depends what group you're in exactly. If you're not in the support group, then that could actually become part of your kind of commitment sort of thing. So it's good to get it on record. But I would speak to them about it directly. Blue Angel 10. Will all payments stop for people with learning disabilities, epilepsy, asthma, communication disabilities, autism, ADHD? Not necessarily. It's going to be a lot harder for people falling within those categories to be eligible and prove their eligibility, and there will be a stronger need for providing evidence. But I think what's also going to happen is that people within these groups that are negatively impacted are probably going to come together to bring legal cases. These will be test cases, and legal teams will be looking to do that when the legislation comes out, and that will probably impact the legislation. So yeah, it's doesn't mean it won't happen, but it does mean that there will be some pushback on it, and that may change things. Less than 21 hours per week is classed as part-time education. Thank you, Edward. ESA isn't affected by short-term courses. Thank you, Edward. There you go. Problem solved. Thank you for that question. They passed the law to ban the XL bully pretty quickly, so how can you say that it's going to take up to 5 years for this to go through? Well, the difference is infrastructure rollout. So it's quite easy to ban a dog in terms of infrastructure rollout, because you deal with it after the fact, not before the fact. So if you see an XL bully dog and someone reports it, then the police can go and step in. So if somebody hasn't reported their XL bully dog or got them registered or whatever, and they're keeping them quiet, and even if they were taking that dog out with a muzzle on and things like that, then people might not report them or whatever, so they might kind of step around that bit of legislation. So there's not a great deal of stuff that has to happen with the infrastructure. However, this kind of thing does take time to go through. I mean, it's a green paper for a start. That's got to take about 6 months to go through, just from the dates that are on the thing. Once that goes through, they probably have got the legislation sitting there in a cupboard ready to go. I'm not saying they've just pulled this out of their ear. They've been planning this for like 30, 40 years. But nonetheless, it then has to go through Parliament, and there will be pushback from certain MPs and certain lords and so on. and then they will have to do trial cases because they won't have the IT infrastructure to be able to deal with it. We'll know how long software companies take to make things and how many times those things fall over. So trust me, it's not going to happen for at least 3 years, bare minimum. You know, that would be when we see it, you know, come into 28, 29. That's when they'd like to get it through by. But it could get tied up a lot more than that, and we could be seeing it into the 2030s, possibly. But like I say, you know, I'm not a know-all or anything, you know, I'm not saying I'm right all the time. Other sources of information are available. All I'm saying is don't panic too much just yet. David O'Dowd. Ooh, we're getting late now. Ooh, heart palpitations. Hang on. It's getting late now, so we're going to wrap this up very soon. David O'Dowd. Hello, Stu. I am on ESA and the dentist says my treatment is free on the NHS. However, I did not like the idea of added molar tooth with wired attachment, but I could pay $2,750 for a prosthetic tooth. Not sure how to answer that. With wired attachment. I don't know what that is. I've never had to have that done. Up to you, of course. It's your mouth. You do with your mouth whatever you want, David. If you were able to find that amount of money for a prosthetic tooth, then, you know, go for it. But, yes. Is that a real Stormtrooper helmet behind you? That's actually a Stormtrooper clock. It's an alarm clock. And you bash him on the head and it glows and it makes a sort of Star Wars sound, like or whatever. Yeah, so will they lose? So, Blue Angel, I've just spotted another one pop up there. I think Phil's having, Duke is having some difficulty with the chat, so he's missing some of the questions that are coming up, but I can still see them here. So I'll just go with a couple more that I can see, and then we'll draw it to a close from some regulars. So Hooked on Classic says he's going to get, or she is going to get their welding qualification. So good for you. Keep doing it. Have all the power in the world from me. Get on it. That was me sending energy over the thing. I'm a carer for 2 disabled people who need 24-hour care and need to be supervised all the time. Will they lose their disability money? They're both on high-level PIP. I sincerely hope they don't. We don't know for certain at the moment. Same answer for Kitty Bell. It's the same thing. You know, everyone has this concern. Will they be losing their support? If they put through these changes in the way that they want to, then everybody will be affected. However, they may not be able to put these changes through. We just don't know at the moment. It might not even be feasible for them to. Okay. Ooh, fibroepilepsy, heart condition. 3 monthly sick notes. I think that's about the maximum you can get. Carry a bag. So yeah, it's all about getting assessed and getting into the support group. So I am going to put out some videos this week, later on in the week, about employment support allowance. One of them, which I'll be posting very soon, is about the regulation 35(2)B, which is about safety at work. If when you do your work capability assessment, you make sure you get across that you would be unsafe to work in any way, shape or form, and you can prove that with evidence, that's the important thing, or that you would be a substantial risk to others, then you could fast track your ESA assessment, maybe even not have to do the face-to-face assessment if you can prove it, and the proof is clear. And I think from what you're saying with having epilepsy and those things, that video might be useful to you. Yeah, we're going to have to bring this to a close now, as I'm getting tired. And David O'Dowd, would it be counted as deliberately reducing my capital? That's a different question. Yes, it would. Quite possibly, because they would say, well, why didn't you go for the cheaper option? So yes, be careful of deprivation of assets there. And then there would be a difference, as that would be seen as elective rather than necessary. So yeah, don't go spending out on the fancy tooth. It's, with me, I just had to have one pulled out. Not that I've got any capital. So, yes, Edward Brown, will this be recorded? It should be being recorded. Yes, it should be being recorded and go up as well. Thank you, Edward. Edward, I missed out what Sarah's birthday surprise was. That's a bit of a shame. So, right, drawing it to a close now. If I've missed your questions this evening, I do apologise. If you've got a detailed question, as I say, do send it through to stu.magoo.info@gmail.com, and I'll try and answer it in as much time as I possibly can. Thank you to everybody for supporting the channel. As I always say, there is super thanks and buy me a coffee and all those things. They pop up on my channel. You can use those if you want to, but just like, share and subscribe. That is the most important thing. Get other people knowing about us. And even if another thing that's really helpful actually is if you see a video of mine posted and it doesn't apply to you, you're not interested in it, that's absolutely fine. But if you're not doing anything else, just put it on to play in the background, turn the sound off. You don't want to hear me waffling on all the time, but it helps the algorithm, and it goes, this person watched it all the way through, so we'll push it a bit more. So if you want to help, that's great. If you turned up late, Caroline, sorry, not going through questions right now, but you will be able to watch this back at a later date. It will be up there for you to be able to do that. And of course, big thanks to Duke of Nuke for doing all of the moderating. He's on it, and he's been having some trouble with the YouTube chat as well. It doesn't always play ball. So anyway, thanks to everyone for tuning in and supporting each other and being so lovely to each other. You're all amazing humans. And remember, whatever you're going through at the minute, no matter how difficult it is, just keep going. Just keep going, because the alternative is much worse. You are all extremely valuable. So remember that. And yes, right. That's enough now. Yes, please binge watch Stu Magoo while you sleep. Or use me to get to sleep. My dulcet tones, whatever you like. Anyway, thanks all